Assalamu alaikum. May the peace, blessings, mercy, and good pleasure of God be upon all of us. We begin by praising Allah and sending His praise and His mercy upon all of His messengers, all of the prophets that He ever sent, starting from Adam and culminating with Muhammad in the middle, the great prophets Abraham, Moses, Jesus, etc., and upon all of the angels, upon Gabriel, upon Michael, upon Israfil, and all of the other angels who are around us and who are with their Lord in heaven, glorifying Him and praising Him at all times. It is now almost, I think, 10 or 12 days into Ramadan, and time is surely flying by. And it was just now that we were anticipating the beginning of Ramadan, and here we are almost at the halfway point. So, yeah, time goes by real quick. So, two interesting narrations by Muhammad of Arabia, the Prophet Muhammad. I will call him Muhammad for my viewers who are not believers in Islam yet. So I will just call him Muhammad. Peace be upon him, of course, as always. And I am here delivering his message. So those of us out there who think that just saying Muhammad and then adding peace be upon him or Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and then not following on his commands makes you pious and makes you upright and makes you a true follower of Muhammad, you're delusional. What's more important is to call him by the name given to him by his father, the name referred to him by Allah Himself in the Quran, and then, of course, to give him his due respect. And whenever one is conscious and aware, to send praises and peace upon him. But when one is delivering a lecture, one is focusing on other important points, on what to say next, how to deliver the message to you, my audience. So please pardon me if I do forget this, okay? So anyway, two interesting narrations regarding fasting. So Prophet Muhammad said that out of all the other acts of worship, we have prayer, the formal prayer 5 times a day. We stand before God. In congregation for men, we stand shoulder to shoulder with other believers. Does not matter if you are black or white, rich or poor, wearing good clothes, wearing stinky clothes. Does not matter. You stand as one, equal in ranks, just like you would stand in war, in battle. So God says to the Prophet, tell the believers to stand shoulder to shoulder in closed ranks and do not leave any space in the ranks, just like how you would arrange your cavalry in war. So we are standing as brothers in worship of God to inculcate the feeling that we are always ready to serve God's cause and we are all brothers in this cause. That's the true philosophy behind standing shoulder to shoulder and praying in congregation, is to create tolerance for fellow brothers. When you are locked up in your penthouses and you're working in your beautiful apartments and living in your beautiful apartments and going to work, and you're driving cars, beautiful cars, you're caught up in your own worldly life, you tend to discriminate against people. You tend to take some people as friends and view other people as strangers. And so the point of prayer is that you abandon everything worldly and you come together, and it's a reminder that you are actually brothers and your actual purpose in life is to worship God. But of course, God has mentioned in the Quran that one of the signs of your Lord is that He has created for you livelihood in the earth. That is, even this work that we do. We go to work, we earn a living so we can provide for ourselves, for our family. So this is one of the signs of God. So the people in this world who are disbelievers in God, who are agnostics, they focus on this material life, world, work, money, and they think they are rebelling against God by doing that, even though it is God who created a livelihood for us. God says that one of His signs is that He favored some people above others and taught some people skills that other people don't know, so there can be a functioning community where if somebody is a doctor, the other person is a carpenter or a plumber. A doctor can do a surgery, but can you fix the bathroom, or can you fix the commode when it's leaking? I sure as shit cannot, so I need a plumber, right? Similarly, a plumber needs a doctor when he has, for example, a heart attack, right? So God has created different people with different abilities so that we all can be in need of each other and hence have a cooperative society. So this is the reason God says we have favored some above others, given some favored some in intellect, some in physical stature, some in spiritual knowledge, some in worldly knowledge. So we can all utilize each other's knowledge and live together as brothers and sisters, not to kill each other and fucking keep fighting. Pardon me for my French. So the Prophet says, Muhammad of Arabia says that regarding fasting, that into two interesting narrations that I was going to talk about. So the Prophet says that every act of worship, as I just mentioned, standing shoulder to shoulder in prayer, the 5 times prayer, zakat, zakat is derived from the Arabic word meaning cleansing, purifying. Okay, most of my brothers and sisters in India, Pakistan, subcontinent don't even know what zakat means, like what it's derived from. It means to cleanse, to purify yourself. It's derived from the word zaki, that means to purify oneself. Okay, it does not mean to give money once a year and then you think you've done God a great favor and you think the rest of the year you don't need to spend anything or help people in charity. No, that 2.5% is obligatory. You must do it. If you don't do it, you don't believe in God and the Prophet. That doesn't mean you don't excel in doing good deeds. You don't keep spending the year round. The other act of worship is the Hajj. That's the pilgrimage to Mecca. And then we have we had the fasting, which we are speaking about right now. The Prophet says all of these acts of worship are for Allah. Are for the person performing them. So zakat is for me in terms of it benefits me. It's actually for my purification. Salat is meaning the prayer. It protects me from sin. It establishes or maintains rather my connection with God. It's for me. It benefits me. The pilgrimage, I go there. I see the signs of the Lord. I see the foundations that Abraham, the great forefather, set up. Literally, like the Kaaba or the sacred house, the black box that my brothers and sisters who are not acquainted with that, the thing that we face towards while praying. We don't worship that box. That box has no significance, but that it is a center of unification. All Muslims, wherever they are in the entire world, in the east, in the west, in the north, in the south, you are in the Arctic Ocean or you are in the middle of Chicago downtown. Okay, you will pray, you will face towards the Kaaba, and then you will pray your obligatory prayers. That's its unification purpose. It gives us unity, that we all face in the same direction. And when you go for the pilgrimage, God says that he told Abraham, when Abraham was, of course, in his early years, he told Abraham with his first son Ishmael. So my brothers and sisters who follow the Jewish scriptures, his first son is Ishmael. You cannot go against historical records. Okay, it was Ishmael who was in Mecca, and many years later it was Isaac who was in the Palestinian area. Okay, so Abraham's first son Ishmael through his second wife Hagar. Who is Hagar? Who is Hajar? She was the gift given to Abraham's first wife Sarah by the king in Egypt, when the king in Egypt tried to seduce Sarah and tried to have her for himself. And then he had this this dream where I don't know, you and I weren't there, we weren't part of the dream, you and I aren't God. So whatever God showed to that person, he woke up, he was like, okay, I don't want to do this with you, and I think God has warned me that you're a spiritual person, so I shouldn't mess around with you. So here I'm giving you a gift, and you can be on your way. So Abraham and Sarah, after leaving their hometown of Babylon, after being expelled from there, or rather after migrating from there because they refused to believe in Abraham, they journeyed on and on. They eventually came to Egypt. They were just trying to preach the message, trying to gain some shelter in this world, and this is where it happened. So anyway, it is Abraham with his son Ishmael who laid the foundations of the Kaaba that we face towards in prayer and that we circumambulate when we go for pilgrimage. Okay, and God says that he told Abraham that this was the first center of worship ever established by God. He's telling this to Abraham first. He's not telling this to Muhammad. Muhammad came way later than Abraham, right? He's the final prophet who came. But he's telling Abraham that the house at Bakka means city, Mecca. The house at Mecca was the first mosque. Mosque is anywhere where you remember, worship, glorify God. So technically speaking, a church is a mosque, a synagogue is a mosque. Sure, in the church they have idol statues, paintings, and they are upholding the Trinity, so we're not really on board over there. But when they are mentioning God, when they're singing, for example, the Lord's Prayer, right? Oh Father, thou art in heaven, the entire prayer. You're not remembering God. Technically, anywhere you remember God becomes a place of worship, becomes a mosque, a masjid. A masjid is a place of sujood. Sujood is prostration, where the Muslims go down and put their forehead on the ground to elevate their Lord. They say, "We are nothing, we are nobody, and you are everything, and you are the Most High." So we prostrate ourselves humbly in worship to our Lord. So, anyway, all of these acts of worship are for the benefit of the one who performs them. But the Prophet says fasting is for Allah and Allah rewards it Himself. Even though, if you look into the science these days, fasting is very good for you. You know, it resets your entire gastrointestinal system. Those, who have like constipation, diarrhea, those who have like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, you tell them to try fasting or intermittent fasting and see how miraculously that works. I attribute my entire weight loss, of course, and my physical transformation to Allah alone, but it is Allah who showed me the way as to what I should do. So intermittent fasting, it works for me, it works for everybody out there. And fasting also kills cancer cells. It's good for your skin, it's good for your mental health. This is very important, okay? So even though science and biology shows that the brain needs glucose to work, every other part of the body, if you're starving, will go into ketosis and will start breaking down fat to utilize that as a resource. But the brain can only use glucose. The brain does not use ketones. However, interestingly, when you're fasting or when anybody is fasting, your mental concentration, your focus, your aptitude, your intellect, your memory, everything improves. So technically speaking, fasting is beneficial for us also, but God in His mercy says that fasting is for me and I will reward it myself. That's narration number one. Narration equals hadith. Hadith means, like, literally it means narration, it means a story. But when in terms of the categorical, the way Muslims call it, it means like a tradition of the Prophet, something the Prophet said, and all of his companions, heard it, they memorized it, and they passed it down. Similarly, even the Quran, as I mentioned previously, was not revealed like a book. Okay, it did not come like a book or a tablet or an iPad, anything like that. It came. God sent the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad, inspired him with the revelation, told him what to say. He received it, he understood it, he comprehended it, and I'm sure he used to practice it before coming out in public, because all of us do that. For example, when I go, as I mentioned, I work as a resident physician. So every morning when we see our patients and we speak to our senior doctors, we have to present the patient. We have to talk about why the patient came, what's going on, what's the diagnosis, what are the lab tests, what are the imaging, and what is the diagnosis. So we have to plan in our heads what we're going to say. You can't just go out and start blurting everything out, right? Anything in any meeting, any presentation, you need to gather your thoughts and then you present coherently. So I'm sure the Prophet, if you go into his life, if you really truly want to appreciate him, imagine him as a human being like me and you, but of course of a character and conduct that me and you should strive to even attempt, but we will not be able to attempt. Okay, that does not mean you should not try. The problem almost us Muslims have made these days is that we have elevated the Prophet to like a godlike status. That is, we say, oh, he was a prophet, so if he did that, he was divinely appointed, he was guided by God especially. So we are not, so we can't be like him. That's not the point. If that's your mentality, he will never be your role model. He will never be your ideal. You will sing praises about him. You will spend all night, singing songs about him, but you will never try to copy him. You will never try to do whatever he did, to speak like he did, to act like he did, to forgive like he did, to be charitable like he did, to be a beautiful husband like he did, to be a best friend like he did, to be a just leader like he was, to be a statesman, a just ruler, a law provider, an implementer, an orator, a philosopher. All of these things, if you don't consider him a human being, you will always say, oh, he was a prophet, so we can't be like him. He was a prophet, yes, but he lived 40 years before being a prophet. I am 27, 28 now actually, my bad. I'm 28. I still have 12 years to go before, for example, and like if I at this point I feel like I've lived a lifetime. 12 more years will I feel like shit. I'm living even like half another lifetime. So the Prophet Muhammad lived 40 years before he became a prophet. Okay, so he was a regular person, a regular individual, a regular human being who was chosen by God to deliver his message because of his conduct. So I'm not saying that if you become like him in conduct, you will become a prophet of God, because there's no more prophets coming, because the divine revelation is closed. Why? Because God has revealed his final book and he has preserved it. There's no need to send a final messenger. In terms of Moses and Jesus, if my brothers and sisters who are the Jews and the Christians, and I'm not saying you, if your ancestors and your scholars did not tamper with the holy scriptures, there would be no need to send Muhammad. So technically speaking, I know that some of you are not aware of Muhammad's message, so like you're not actively in opposition to him. But those of you who claim him to be an imposter, bringing a message which is almost identical to what came to Moses and Jesus, bruv, it's the same Lord, the same Creator, sending the same message to just a different person. That's it. Muhammad is a person. Moses is a person. Jesus Christ is a person. He had a miraculous birth. Okay. He had an element of having no father but a mother. We bear witness that is a miracle. God says that he bestowed upon Maryam his word. He said be, and it was. Jesus Christ was, she bore his pregnancy without the element of a male partner. There was no sperm involvement. There was no XY chromosome involved in that. So that does not mean he was a son of God. Let's talk about Adam. Adam had no mother or father, and God said be, and he was. Why don't you guys worship Adam then? Seeing that he had no father and no mother, and Jesus Christ had a mother. So in terms, if that is your logic in making in Isa Jesus the son of God, then make Adam the son of God, a higher son of God, and then we'll see how you do about that. Similarly, let's talk about John the Baptist, the predecessor of Jesus Christ. His I would say his cousin. Let's go through the family history a bit, okay? So Yahya, aka John the Baptist, and by the way, Yahya means the living. Yahya, Hay, that's the word derived from Yahya. So God says, in another surah, he mentions in Ayatul Kursi, that's the verse of the throne, he says, Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. That Allah, there is no God besides He, the ever living, the eternal. So Yahya is derived from that. So technically, his name means living. Okay, just a fun fact, has no relevance to this topic right now, but so John the Baptist, his father was Zechariah. He was the last prophet before John the Baptist and before Jesus Christ, and he was like the leader. He was the high priest of the temple of Solomon in Jerusalem at that time. Okay, so his wife, let's stop there. He had a wife. Okay, let's just stop there. Then there were two individuals, very noble, very pious. One was called Imran. Okay, I don't know what the Latin for that is, Imran or Amran, how you guys say it. But Imran, okay, he had a wife, and his name her name was Anne. Okay, Anne was married to Imran. Okay, and Anne was the sister of Elizabeth, I believe that's the word. That's the name. If I'm messing up the names, that's not the point. The point is to, build up the genealogy of how Jesus Christ and how John the Baptist are related. Okay, so Imran was married to Anne. Anne was a sister of Elizabeth. Elizabeth was married to Zechariah. Okay, Imran and Anne had a daughter. Her name was Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Jesus Christ, Mary. Okay. Elizabeth and Zechariah had a son, John the Baptist. So John the Baptist and Maryam, aka Mary. John the Baptist and Mary are first cousins, though Mary was much older. Okay, like Zechariah had his child, that is Yahya, later on. So there was an age difference. And then the son of Mary is Jesus. So technically speaking, you could say that John the Baptist is like a second cousin of Jesus Christ, or maybe even like a second uncle, if you want to really talk about it, accurately. But so Zechariah was very old, and like males can remain reproductive and potent. That means that they can they can impregnate other females even in their old age, like 80 plus, 90 plus, depends on your testosterone levels, depends on how you are maintaining yourself in life. Anyway, but there comes an age, there comes a time where even males become sterile. They cannot reproduce anymore. Similarly, women, when you have menopause, that's it. There's no more. When your periods stop, when the monthly cycles stop, that's an indication that your ovaries are out of the eggs. There's no more eggs. There's no more ovulation. So there's no more menstruation. There's no menstruation. Menstruation is basically, it happens after the ovum is released, when there's a menstrual cycle going on, the ovarian cycle going on rather. And if there's no fertilization, if there's no sperm to meet the ovum, all the changes that happen in like the uterus to welcome a potential fetus, there's no more hormonal stimulation. All of it breaks down. All of the lining, all of the mucus glands to support the potential pregnancy, everything shuts down, and then all of that extra tissue is released through the reproductive canal, and that's called menstruation. Okay, so anyway, after women reach menopause, no more menstruation after that. So Zechariah literally mentions in the Quran that he called out to God. He said, that my hair has become white, my bones have become weak, indicating he's crossed the age of like 70, 80. He's an extremely old man and he can't walk and he can't stand upright. And he said his wife is barren. That means she's got menopause, and he still asked God, give me a son. Give me. He didn't say a son. He just said, give me somebody who will look after all of this work that I've dedicated to your cause. Because in that time, he didn't see anybody fit to become his successor, his spiritual successor, in terms of taking over the Temple of Solomon and leading the Jews. He didn't find anybody worthy of any candidate. So he asked God for a representative, a friend, a helper, somebody who will assist him in his task. So God gave him a son. So anyway, John the Baptist, speaking medically, okay, his mother was in menopause. So his mother, he didn't have a mother. Speaking scientifically, he had no mother. I mean, in terms of her giving him, like her providing an egg and the father providing his sperm. I'm talking scientifically now, okay? So his father was very old. He's become senile. He's become infertile. So he's not providing the sperm cell. His mother has crossed menopause. She's not providing the ovary. So in terms of scientifically speaking, he had no biological father or no biological mother. When you're talking about Jesus Christ, Mary was a young woman when she had Jesus Christ. Okay, she had not crossed menopause. Sure, there was no element of a male, so okay, cool, that's miraculous. But there was a female element. Mary was undergoing menstruation. She had her uterus intact. She had her ovaries intact. She had her egg cells. So Jesus Christ had a mother but no father. John the Baptist had no father, had no mother, speaking biologically in terms of reproduction. And Adam had no father, no mother. And you think Jesus Christ is the Son of God because he had no father? You are fact checked. Okay. Anyway, back to the point. The other narration that Prophet Muhammad said regarding fasting, and I've taken half an hour already. I'm very sorry about this. Prophet Muhammad says that for the believer who is fasting, there are 2 points of joy. There are 2 points of celebration. There are 2 occasions where he becomes happy or she becomes happy. Number 1, when you break your fast. And number 2, when you meet your Lord and he rewards you for all the fast that you kept. And with that being said, without further ado, let's give a quick recap of what we did in episode 1, 2, and 3, and then get back into our topic of interest. Episode 1 was an introduction about who Muhammad was, his background, his family history, his early life before prophethood, and the conditions of Arabia before that. Okay. Episode 2. Episode 2, we spoke about the first chapter, the opening chapter, the supplication to God for guidance, Surah Fatiha, also called the opening, also called the mother of the Quran, also called, if you think about it, it contains like all of the principles of Islam in that 7 verse small passage of supplication. And then we started with the first chapter of the Quran, the first main chapter of the Quran called Surah Al-Baqarah, entitled The Cow. We will talk about why it's called the cow. We went through a couple of verses, like 16 verses to be precise and exact. And we spoke about how, this chapter is placed in the beginning because it has a lot of, like when a reader, a non-believer, somebody who's not well versed with what Islam is, what God is trying to say, what Islam represents, this surah is a good introductory chapter. It introduces all of the key elements of Islam, all of the key points of prophetic and like history, like the history of Moses and the Jews, the history of Christians, the history of David, Solomon, the history of Saul, Samuel. And it talks about like pilgrimage, it talks about fasting, it talks about zakat, it talks about divorce, marriage. It's a very comprehensive surah, so it's good to have something which is comprehensive in the beginning of the book, so a reader who has no idea what's going on is hooked from the beginning, and he's introduced to like important topics from an early point. So he has in his mind, oh, this is historical evidence, oh, this is what the Muslims do when they pray, oh, this is why they face the Kaaba, stuff like that. That's why it's his place in the beginning of the Quran, but God knows best. Wallahu alam, I'm nobody to say this. Okay, so we mentioned how God, in this opening verses of this chapter, God mentions, like he says, this is the book, and in this book there is no doubt. This is the only book in the world, as I remarked on previously, that starts off like this. Every other book, every other 4-word preface will say, if I made any mistakes, pardon me, or if there is more sources of knowledge that come in the future that that prove that my my views and thoughts are wrong, so like forgive me or pardon me, whatever. This is the only book which says that this is the book. There is no doubt about it. There is no element of doubt in it. Everything in it is absolutely true, 100% true, has always been true, will always be true, and you cannot beat it, you cannot find an error in it, and you cannot even match it. That's what he's trying to say basically. And he says it's a guidance for those who fear God, and he mentions who are those who fear God. You enter this in detail, who believe in the unseen, who pray, who spend out of their own wealth, who believe in the unseen, and they believe in what has been sent down to Muhammad, aka the Quran, what has been sent down to previous messengers, whatever came to Abraham in terms of scriptures, whatever came to Noah in terms of scriptures, whatever came to Moses, the Torah, whatever came to Jesus Christ, the Injil. We have to believe in all of that. If you don't believe in that, we are not believers in Muhammad. Understand this. This is very crucial. Muhammad did not bring a new religion. He brought the original religion, and he brought it. And the reason why he was sent was because our ancestors, they mutilated God and his religion. So there was a need to send the final messenger with the final book to say, okay, mankind, I have delivered the message now, even though you kept on fucking up, you kept on messing up, you kept on tampering with my book to make some money and to earn position and title and fame. Here's my final messenger. I have sent this final book. It is correcting all of your your misconceptions and all of your wrong deeds. We're highlighting your wrong deeds, all of your misconceptions, everything that you went wrong in. We have corrected it. We have told you what to do now, and now we will preserve it so it will remain with you, aka humanity, till all time. So the Torah and the Injil, nowhere has it said in either book that God has promised to protect it. In the Quran, God clearly says that it is we who have revealed it, and it is we who shall protect it. So, because the book is in its original pristine form, nobody has corrupted it, nobody has forgotten it, or lost it, or edited it, or tampered with it, there is no need to send another messenger. That's the logic. So Muhammad didn't bring a new religion. Muhammad does not follow a new different God. Muhammad follows the same God that Adam worshipped, the same God that Abraham worshipped, the same God that Moses worshipped, the same God that Jesus worshipped. Jesus is not the son of God. He is a mighty messenger of God, and he himself has said that, which you will see quite clearly. So my brothers and sisters, in Islam, in Judaism, in Christianity, and in all religions in the world, for God's sake, Muhammad is not somebody who copied the other religions. Like many of, like the arguments made against Islam is that they say, Muhammad didn't bring anything new. He copied what was in the previous scriptures, and he changed things here and there. Bruv, it is you who changed things here and there. Muhammad brought the final message of God. If you guys didn't tamper with the message of God sent to you guys previously, there would be no need to send Muhammad. So technically, it's because of your ancestors and your priests and your rabbis, their misdeeds, that Muhammad had to be sent. The joke's on you. If you're not believing in him, he was sent because of you guys. But anyway, let's get back to the topic in hand. So after mentioning how this book is a guidance for certain people with certain attributes, God then goes on to introduce 3 characters: the believers, the disbelievers, the hypocrites. The believers, of course, are those who believe in all scriptures, who are just, at baseline, at like just internally, even without having a scriptural guidance, just good people, they go to human beings. They know they have a purpose in life. They know that the creation of God is not in vain. It's not that you go to work, you earn money, you raise a family, you live a good life, you retire, and then you die and you are nothing. That's not a life. That's ridiculous. That literally, just imagine how we are the only creation on earth who can communicate, like, comprehensively, logically. We can communicate ideas, we can form our own ideas, we can cooperate, as we can bring our diverse skills together, we can build freaking buildings, we can bring enterprises, industries, from just rubbing like twigs of wood to creating fire. Like we are like like splitting the atom. We are like doing all sorts of remarkable things. You look at science, you look at medicine, you look at like like robotics, you look at AI. All of these things just testify to the fact that like that there is a higher purpose to life. It's not that we just come in this world, we live and we die and there's no more. That'd be ridiculous. Like, imagine 60-70 years we come here, we do everything we do, and then we die and there's nothing left. There's no hereafter. Like what happens to us after we become stardust, or we are reincarnated into butterflies or ants or reptiles based on our past conduct? Absolutely not. We're going to be raised up and we will give account for every single blessing God gave to us individually and as a creation, as mankind generally. As God said, we'll keep on repeating the many favors He has bestowed upon mankind. And one important side note that I will say here, it is my personal belief that all of the great religions, like, just think about it, like all of the great religions, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, even I would say Hinduism, but not in its corrupted form right now, or Buddhism. All of these, like, speak about God. They speak about like an entity, like a spiritual entity who's in control of everything, and then like recompense, and a day of judgment, even if not called day of judgment, but like you get rewarded or punished for your deeds, and there is like a accounting, a reckoning. So in Buddhism, like nirvana is, reincarnation is. So I'm of the firm belief that God says in the Quran to the Prophet that we have mentioned to you the names of many of our prophets and many messengers, but we have left out a vast majority of names, aka the Prophet Muhammad, and through him us. We don't know about a lot of messengers and prophets God sent. He's named a lot in the Quran, which we'll see is like a flower bouquet of beautiful names of the messengers. And I will talk about the history also, where the accurate place that we can talk about it more. So like Gautam Buddha, the creator of Buddhism, he was like a prince. He was a prince of a place called Kapilvastu. That's like a palace of Vastu, basically. So he was like a prince, basically. He had a beautiful maiden wife. He had like a newborn child, but he was like really upset with like the things around him, the world around him, the suffering, the cruelty, the injustice, the oppression, how the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, people are dying of disease. There's mental health problems going on, there's injustice, cruelty, oppression, like I said. So he said, I'm not going to sit in my palace and live like a king. I need to go out in the world. I need to learn the truth. What is the purpose of this life? Why are we here? Why are we created? And try my best to fight the not the injustice, to learn the truth, to seek the guidance. This is exactly what Muhammad did. That when he started retiring to the cave of Hira after like 35 plus years, he used to meditate. He used to go away from the people. He used to be. Imagine you go in a mountain, in a cave. That means you want to be alone. That's what it means. That's why he used to go there. There's no other reason why he used to go there. Okay, it's like me. Like, for example, like staying in like my bedroom. The point is to cut off from society, to like be on your own, so you can meditate, think, ponder. So what did Muhammad do? A brief side note, like before the prophethood came, for like many years, some say 10 years, some say 5 years, some say 1 year, every month in the month of Ramadan. How ironic is that, by the way, that even, like, Ramadan was always a month, like it was always a month like of high value, even in the times of pagan Arabia. Okay, now we associate Ramadan with fasting, But Ramadan has always been part of the Islamic calendar. Though it was not called Islamic calendar, it was called, let's just say, like the Arabian calendar. That's not accurate, but to get the point across. Okay. So Muhammad used to, for 1 month, pack his food and drink, and he used to go up to this mountain in this cave and just stay alone there. We don't know what he did because you and I weren't there, and me and you aren't God. We don't know the unseen. But what's reported in tradition is that he used to meditate on, his society, as I mentioned, pagan Arabia. They used to kill their newborn daughters. Stepsons used to marry their mothers after their father passed away. It was ridiculous. Only the eldest male, he would inherit all the property. There was no property given to females, no property given to younger children. Only the one male, the first male, would take all the property and would take the father's wives, even though that wife may be his own mother. He would marry her and he would have intercourse with her. They used to they had some good qualities. Let's talk about those first before I forget. They were hospitable. Okay, they were very good. They were very welcoming to their guests. If a guest comes, they would give all the food, all the drink they had. They would say, come stay with us. They would say ahlan wa sahlan. That means come enter into my house, be like my own household. That means ahlan, be like my own family. And sahlan, be at peace, be at calm, like you're in your own comfort zone. You want to dig your nose, you dig your nose. You want to fart, you fart. You want to burp, you burp. You want to lie down, you lie down. Stuff like that. And they never broke their promise. Like if, for example, like somebody said, like I promise that I won't kill you. For example, like and I promise I will protect you from this tribal feud, or I promise that I will return this valuable belong to you. They would return it. They would die, but they would keep their promise. So, being good guest, keeping a promise. They were very brave in war. Okay, they weren't known for organized war because they were always fighting amongst each other. Okay, but like when they did fight, they were like, it's gonna be fight or die. We're gonna die. We don't care. We don't want to live. This is our honor, our property. We're gonna die for it. Okay. So, bravery, valor, being good to guests, hospitality, integrity, character, upright, being truthful. These are attributes that God tells us in the Quran to this day to uphold. So, pagan Arabia, it had its cons. Okay, there were some things crazy about them. For example, there were many tribes, and within those tribes, many clans. Like Quraysh is one tribe. Within the Quraysh, there are many clans. Banu Hashim, Banu Muttalib, stuff like that. I'm not an expert in like Arabic history, but whatever comes to my mind of significance, I'm narrating that to you. So, say for example, one clan goes to the territory of one clan and like drinks their water. Like if somebody from the other clan came out, they would kill that person, and as retaliation, the former clan would take revenge against the other clan, and then this would go down in history through thousands of years, to blood feuds, that, oh, you killed my initial ancestor, I'm going to keep on killing you, stuff like that. So there was some stupidity, some ignorance. God says jahiliya, the word jahil, my brothers in India and Pakistan, it does not mean uneducated. Okay, it does not mean uneducated. If I say you are jahil, I don't mean that you say, oh, I went to Stanford, I went to McGill, I went to undergraduate college in Australia, or whatever the fuck. It means you are ignorant. That means that you are not fully aware, conscious, or willing to like open your mind to the possibilities that your way of thinking may not be the right way, and there is a certain way of right and wrong. You are just closing your mind to it. Okay, and you are ignoring certain human some things which we all agree about right and wrong. So anyway, the Prophet used to go in retirement to this cave of Hira and used to meditate. My people, they are like this. They are fighting, they're killing each other, they are burying their daughters alive. Like they're drinking alcohol, they're drinking booze, they're partying, they have, the poetry contests, they're staying up late at night listening to poetry, and, like having like great gatherings where there's women and men mixing, dancing, having a good time. Notice how this is exactly what's going on right now. So, a side note, I know I've given too many side notes and I haven't even started what my chapter was, and we are 40 minutes in. But the point is not to, have like a rigid format and go through the Quran. Is to expound knowledge, to so a reminder anything that I can convey to you which may trigger your way of thinking, which may make you question existence, and which may make you understand the component of the mission of Muhammad and the message of God. That's my purpose. So if it takes a million episodes to finish this entire series, God willing, I'm willing to do that. Okay, but this is important. Okay, I can tell you that I will remember this and tell you at the right time. But if I forget, then it's I will not have done my due diligence. My duty here, my objective here is that the knowledge God has given me is to provide it to you wholesale. Okay, not holding back at all. So I can stand before God and say, God, you gave me knowledge, I understood it, I implemented it, I applied it, and I delivered it. It's up to you guys. You want to follow it? Cool. You want to believe me? Cool. You want to call me crazy? I'm already crazy. I don't need you to give me a double whammy. I already know I have mental health issues. Okay, no big deal there. But anyway, so they used to have poetry contests. As I mentioned, like poetry was the domain of knowledge which they upheld to be like the coolest thing at the time. For example, at the time of Moses, it was magic. That's why God gave Moses, like, it wasn't magic, but technically speaking, it was magic, right? He had the staff of Moses, he would throw on the ground, it would become like a huge cobra, basically. So that's technically magic, right? Something which is outside the realm of logical explanation. We'll call it like that, okay? At the time of Jesus Christ, the Jews were preoccupied with like prolonging life and health and medicine and curing disease and sickness, which we are still doing right now in this freaking rat race. That being said, I'm also a healthcare professional, but I'm just doing it because the more I study medicine, the more I appreciate the great blessings that God has given to us. Imagine, we think we are super champions because it took us 100 years to learn about that we have white blood cells and there's bacteria, fungi causing disease, and the microscope, and like knowing what happens in like the cells in terms of like the biochemical processes, like like osmosis, like energy production in terms of ATP, stuff like that. It took us thousands of years. God just said be, and he created not only mankind, but he created all of the other creation, the horses, animals, like donkeys, cows, tigers, panthers, killer whales, sharks, birds, flamingos, stuff like that. So imagine that, and all he said was, and it was done. And look at you and I. It took us thousands of years just to know that there are unseen organisms which cause disease. The theory of microbiology, the person who came up with it, he was called crazy, and he was like almost killed by his people. They were like, "What's wrong with you?" He said there is a germ theory that, he said that there are unseen organisms which cause disease. So his people said, you are absolutely fucking crazy. That's actually what they said. And this is like the pioneer of the germ theory. The germ theory. I'm sorry, my tongue today is, I don't have good control of it. Probably because it was like iftar time not too long ago, and here I am, still having my coffee and my water. And a pro tip: if you have trouble understanding what I'm saying, watch my video on 0.5 speed. I would highly recommend this to you if you're missing some words. I'm also trying to talk slowly and coherently, but when I get excited, when I'm in my thought process, as I mentioned, this is my first time on camera, my first time doing these things, so I'm focusing more on being able to say what I need to say. I'm not focusing on how I'm saying it, rather what to say right now. So it's YouTube, it's amazing, technology is good. Just rewind if you're not hearing me, or just fucking put 0.5 speed. It's not a big deal, okay? But anyway, at the time of Jesus, the domain of knowledge was medicine, as I said, prolonging life, healing what could not be healed. So Jesus Christ came with great miracles. It's actually beautiful. So at that time, and till now, all of we have our surgeons, we have our ventilators, we have our microsurgery, we have our microscopes, we have our central lines, ultrasound, freaking name it. But there are certain things we can't cure. Blindness, sure, you say, oh, this person has cataract, he has glaucoma, or he has diabetic retinopathy, so we're gonna go put an injection in the eye, and we will solve the case. Okay, you can reverse or you can delay blindness caused by reversible causes like diabetes, hypertension, stuff like that. But once a person is blind, you cannot reverse the blindness. You cannot give the person sight after a person has gone blind. You can prolong it, you can delay it, sure, not denying that. But once it's done, you cannot reverse it. Similarly, a patient comes, you had a cardiac arrest, you do CPR, intubate him, bring him in the ICU. I just finished the ICU rotation right now, 1 month, 1 whole month. Today I put a central line. That's like when you go to get a blood test, you get your like blood sample through here. They put a needle in and they draw blood. Central line is like similar to that. They put like a catheter inside so they can like administer like certain medications like vasopressors to support the blood pressure of the patient when their heart is failing, for example. So that needs to be given through the neck vein, so you can go through the jugular vein into the heart directly, because that's where it's needed, right, for the heart to start pumping properly. Anyway, side note, I have no idea why I just shared that, but let's keep on going. So at the time of Christ, when Christ came, crazy miracles, okay? So of course, even at that time, at the height of the medicine at that time, they couldn't cure the blind, they couldn't cure leprosy, which was still, now it's technically like not curable, but if you catch it in its early disease, you give it antibiotics, prolonged antibiotics, and you prevent it from reaching its terminal stages. You don't eliminate it, the bacteria still fucking lives. The bacteria is very deet. Deet in Urdu means very stubborn. It lives, but it's walled off. The immune system blocks it off and stops it from reproducing and going haywire in the body and causing active disease, but it is not eliminated. So it stagnates it, it prevents it, it holds it, but it is not eliminated. So leprosy, blindness, and finally death. You cannot reverse death. When a patient, you put them on the ventilator, you do CPR, like I mentioned, you give them shocks, you put a pad on the chest, you give them like literally like electrical shock to to jolt their heart back into rhythm. You can do all these things. But when a patient is dead, what do? Bring two physicians to verify the death. So we, of course, we check the brainstem reflex, we check the corneal reflex, we check gag reflex, cough reflex. We can do like brain studies like EEGs to see if there's any brain activity. We can do like like blood flow studies in the brain, like Doppler ultrasound, stuff like that. Anyway, when a person is dead, there's no bringing them back. Jesus Christ came, he cured the blind, he cured leprosy, and he told the people in the grave or anybody in the grave, by the permission of your Lord, rise up, and the dead would rise up. So anyway, so each prophet, was appropriately sent with, like irrefutable proofs of the prophethood and the appointment of God exclusively by having the most knowledge at that time in the domain, in the domain of knowledge at that time. So Moses, magic; Jesus Christ, medicine; Muhammad, verbal eloquence, not poetry, because the Quran is not poetry. However, why I said all of this was diving back into the times of pagan Arabia. They thought that they were the only people who could speak. They call everybody, like they said they are, they are like dumb. Dumb means like they can't speak. I don't mean dumb intellectually, I mean like dumb as in like they don't even know how to speak. They didn't mean literally, they meant that our language, our eloquence, our grammar, our literature, all verbally, not the Arabs. Sure, some knew, who were like the rich people, they knew how to read and write, but that was because of external sources. Like when I was born, like if you're born in like, for example, like a small village in Africa, the people around you aren't educated, are not educated. But if you have if you are from like a wealthy family, your parents are exposed to like international affairs, stuff like that, so they will hire you a teacher and they will educate you. But you will be an odd one out. You will be educated, meaning you can read and write and you know about the world and geography and history and politics and science, but your community does not know that. So you are the off case because you are extra privileged. Similarly, in pagan Arabia at that time, the majority were not educated. They could not read and write, but that does not mean that they were stupid or illiterate, or you call them jahil in terms of the way us in the Indo-Pak continent call it. It just means that they were they were focusing on what they thought was knowledge. That was like verbal excellence, linguistic excellence. So they used to know all of the pedigrees of their camels. Think about this. They used to know the ancestry of their camels verbally by heart, memorized. Like it was like tradition, like there's a family and like a son or a daughter is born. So their upbringing revolved around making them memorize their family history, the animal history, the Arabian history, who their warriors were, who their heroes were. So at a young age, like they were like, like taught to, how to, just rely on like their tongue and their ears and their comprehension centers to, like, that was the way to learn information. Like, you hear something for somebody, you retain in your mind, and then you want to communicate an idea, you speak. There was no like reading or writing basically. So like that's how they communicated, that's how they passed on their knowledge. So these pagans of Arabia, like they knew their entire like ancestry, their entire lineage, like by heart. So when like, and like they used to like have these poetry contests at night. Then used to have like gatherings where people would tell like all sorts of like stories. Like think about it now. Like when we have like, when we watch movies and we have like stand-up comedy shows that we go to, that's what we're doing the same thing, but like 1,000 years down the line in like a different setting, air conditioned room, nice cool lights. We have, we have nice cocktails on our table. We have a very nice clothes, very nice suits. We're in an opera theater. It's the same thing. Or we're in a cinema, we're having hot dog, we're having popcorn, we're having a nice Slurpee. It's the same thing. The point is to entertain, right? So they had their entertainment gatherings, and over there they used to have poetry contests. People would come, they would like flex, oh, I know this poetry, I know these beautiful words, and they would say it. They would say it melodically, and what they would say would have profound meaning. So God sent Muhammad with the Quran. The Quran is I don't know Arabic. I'm like learning it through the Quran only. I don't get much time. It's my mission in life to learn the Arabic, so I can understand better what God is trying to say without translation. And on the day of judgment, if I'm lucky enough, I can talk to the Prophet in Arabic. But that's if I'm lucky enough. But anyway, so yeah, so the Prophet Muhammad was sent with the Quran, majestic in its literature. Even in English translation, which we'll see, even after being translated, the literature, the English, the language, the meaning is mesmerizing. So imagine in the local language at that time, when they're flexing and they're taking great, like great pride in, oh, we are the champions, we speak the best language. And then the Quran comes, and it's linguistic excellency, absolutely melodic. It is enchanting. If you listen to like, just open YouTube and let's just write Surah Rahman, by Imam Sudais, and just even if you don't know what the hell is being said, just focus on his voice and how he's like reciting verses. It's like therapy. It's like, it's like music. It's not music, it's like divine music. It's like, oh my god, this feels good. I feel so cool, I feel so relaxed, I feel calming. Listening to like sounds of waves and sounds of like air and wind and breeze. It's like that. It like calms you, it calms your heart. Anyway, and that's the Quran. Not only sounds good, but it has absolutely profound meaning. So don't, you could say like, you can have like a poet, come up and say, like jumble up a couple of nice sounding couplets, like matching, rhyming, beautiful, but they don't make any sense. Like it's like abadudi, whatever, right? So even though it has melody, it sounds good to the ear, it makes no sense, right? It has no meaning. It's like, okay, it sounds good, but do I care? Does it move me? Does it change me? No. But the Quran is such that if you listen to it, you are mesmerized, even if you don't know what is being recited, which is the condition of the entire Indo-Pak subcontinent. Of course, barring those who have dedicated time to learn Arabic language, we stand in prayer. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata allazina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Sounds beautiful, right? Those of you who know what it means, the meaning is even better than the way it sounds. But those of you who don't know what it means, I'm not saying that I am Adam Lambert, or I'm saying that I am the greatest voice of all time. I'm just learning, to recite God's message in beautiful tones. So, but yeah, for me it sounds good. I'm sure at least one of you would agree that that wasn't a bad recitation. So the Quran sounds good and it means even better. Like the meaning is even more profound. But so yeah, the Prophet was sent with the Quran. That was the highest level of knowledge, as I mentioned, was linguistic excellence and with meaning, with profound meaning. So the Quran was revealed to the Prophet. He would go out in society, he would go out in public, and he would, pardon my French, he would start spitting bars. He would go out and he would start saying this. Like the Quran was not revealed like a book. Every verse which you and I, read in this, like organized paragraph form like this, This is not how the Quran came down. Every verse, like this verse, was said out loud. People heard him, they understood it, they recognized it, and they memorized it. So that's why those of us who say that, oh, what is the evidence that, like the Quran was not changed because it was not compiled in the Muhammad's lifetime, it was not written down in Muhammad's lifetime, so how are we so sure that, the Quran is how it was revealed? Bruv, these people memorize the ancestry of their freaking camels, something which is not important. When the Quran came, they changed their entire way of life, their entire way of thinking, and adopted every single ruling of the Quran, lived to its fullest. They lived for Muhammad, they died for Muhammad, they changed their entire way of thinking. You think they would forget this? You think they would forget this book? Their lives were based on this. The entirety of Muhammad's life, which is the Quran, which we will go through in chronological order, and literally. So a situation arose, a battle came, Muhammad came, revelation came to him. He said, "This is what God has said," and he started speaking. He started reciting the words. Those people who were around, they didn't note it down. They heard what the Prophet said, they understood what he said, and they memorized it because the Quran was their compass, it was their guidance. If you are lost in the forest and you have a flashlight and it has like only one battery cell left, you're going to put it in your underwear to secure it. It'll be that crucial, that important to you. So for the Muslims, the Quran was their compass, it was their guidance. They would not mess around with this memorization. They would literally, in the early years, when before the formal prayer was, like the formal 5 prayers. By the way, in formal 5 prayers, we do sunrise, noon, afternoon, sunset, night time. These 5 obligatory prayers were like fixated. I mean, their specific times, how many units to recite, like how many times you stand up, how many times to bow down, how many times you prostrate. That's what I mean. Was revealed in the 10th year of prophethood. So for 10 whole years, of course, the Quran was being revealed in those 10 years. Of course it was. And God still told the messenger and the prophet, establish prayer. The purpose of prayer is you recite the Quran, you think about the Quran, you memorize the Quran. It's like a rehearsal, it's like a memorization. When I'm studying for my examinations, what I do? I read something again, I go back to it, I read it again, I think about it. In my free time, I'm going through a brainstorming. Oh, this is what I studied. Oh yes, this is the physiology. Oh yes, cardiac output equals stroke volume into heart rate, for example, right? Stuff like that, you think about it. So the Quran is a reminder. It's, you read it, you try to memorize it, and in your mind you're running through it. Oh, this is what God said. What is God meaning by that? And how do I implement that? So the point of prayer is that you recite the Quran, and while reciting it, you are, you are preserving it in your memory. So there is absolutely no doubt that it was not compiled in a book form in the Prophet's life, but these people were lovers of the Prophet. They were submitters to God in their true cause. But think about this, okay? I know we didn't even go into our discussion of what was the topic of today, and we have crossed the 1 hour mark, so I will stop the video at 1 hour, and we will pick up inshallah where we left off in episode 3 in terms of the verses. Surah Baqarah, verse 16 we read till. So we will again, and I gave the overview of what Surah Baqarah is till this point. So we will continue with verse 17, but these 2 minutes that I have, understand the greatest example of how the Quran changed the people's life was, sure, in Mecca, those who believed in him, there were a few, but the majority of the population went against him. They plotted against him, they starved the believers, they persecuted the believers, they killed them, they put them in jail, they eventually expelled the Prophet. But an entire city altogether, who has not known the Prophet for these 10 or 10, 12 odd years, the message comes to them. They believe in it, and they tell the Prophet, just come to us. These people don't want to listen to you, they want to kill you, they don't want to persecute you. You leave these wretched people, you and the people who believe with you, you come to our city. That time is called Yathrib, now called Medina. A different city from Makkah. Medina is like Chicago and New York in terms of distance, for example. So they were like, you come to us, bring the believers, and of course, when you migrate in the way of God, you leave everything behind, right? Like all your property, all your wealth, all your money, all your family, all your goats, your camels, your sheep, you leave it all there, and you say, frick it, I don't want this wealth, you guys keep it. We're migrating for God's cause. So the Ansar, meaning the helpers in Medina, they were so welcoming. And understand this, everybody likes money, okay? Like, I earn a living, sure, I give out in charity, alhamdulillah. But I like money, I like having enough in my account so I can sustain myself for the entire month. So the Ansar were such people, the people of Medina, that they said, our brothers who are coming from Mecca, they have left everything to migrate in God's cause, to escape persecution, to come to have religious freedom, to have the ability to practice their religion freely without being persecuted. That's all they wanted basically, and it's not a big ask, right? Anyway, they came to Medina, and the people of the Ansar, they said, our house is your house. You will live with us. Our property, we divide it in half. We keep half, you keep half. It came to the extent that and in Arabia, even now in the Muslim culture, you're allowed to take multiple wives. A man can have multiple wives. The cap is at 4, but that's only if you are able to be equitable, just to all of them equally. If you can't do that, God says stick to one. But if you can't do that, have 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you stop there. Okay. So at that time, imagine they said, okay, you have left your family, you have left your children, you have left your wealth, and you have migrated from Mecca, you have come to Medina. So we will divorce one wife, you can take one of our wives or 2 of our wives. Imagine, these are strangers to each other. The people of Makkah and Medina, they didn't meet, they didn't live together for 10 years. It was just 1 year where some individuals came for the pilgrimage. As I said, all over Arabia, pagan tribes would come to Makkah and they would circumambulate the Kaaba like we do to this day. But of course, we worship God alone and not the idols that they had placed there. Imagine strangers welcoming strangers and being willing to give them half of their property, their house, and their sexual relations, their wives, saying, we divorce, you take one of our wives. Would you do this for me? Would you do this for your neighbor? Would you do this for your best friend? Think about it. If your brother comes to you and says, give me half your money, give me half your property, I'm going to crash at your house for 1 whole year, or give me your one wife, you'd be like, go fuck yourself, right? You're going to be like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is not reasonable demand. But these people, the Ansar, they were willing to do all of this. Why? The Quran trains them, transformed them. So these people who showed such a great transformation in their lives based on the Quran, you don't think they would protect it in their memory? You don't think they would do everything they can to know exactly what was said by the Prophet and to memorize it and to pass it on? You're absolutely wrong if you don't agree with me, okay? So yeah, the Quran is not tampered with. You read the Quran, even if you're not a believer, read the Quran with impartiality. Don't be biased about it. Read the Quran, and if you don't feel in your heart that this is the truth, and if there was God, if there was religion, this has to be it, because every other religion has entire big loopholes. Like, come on, how can God, after sending a line of messengers starting from Adam till Abraham till Moses, then say, okay, fuck it, I'm going to take a son now? And after their point of sending the messengers was to warn mankind that there's a day of judgment, there's a right and wrong, you are being assessed, this is a trial period. You do good deeds, you get rewarded in this world, and the credit goes on to the hereafter. You do bad deeds, you may or may not be punished in this world, but you will definitely be punished in the hereafter. The point of sending the messengers with the scriptures is that God wants that a prophet should be inspired by God, should come to mankind, deliver the message, so they should know that this is what God expects. God wants you to live by a certain conduct of life. He's warning you that this is not only YOLO, you live only once, we live and we die, there's no life in the hereafter. God, the point of sending the messenger and the books was, it's like an instruction manual, that this is how God wants you to live. God wants to remind you that you will die, God will resurrect you, and you will have to give an account of your deeds, okay? So imagine, this point of sending messengers was to make people aware that they are accountable for their actions, that if you do a good deed, reward, if you do a bad deed, punishment, okay? So till now we are agreed that the point of sending religion, divinely appointed religion, and all the messengers of God was to make mankind aware of their personal accountability. Everybody is answerable for their own good deeds and their own sins. Nobody can take the burden of another person, okay? Even in this world, okay? If I go kill somebody and I say to my cousin, you go to jail for me, the court will say, are you freaking crazy? It is your blood. You have the blood on your hands. You will pay penance. Similarly, I've worked very hard. I gave my USMLE step 1, step 2, step 3. I gave my interviews. I worked really hard to get this job that I'm at. Imagine, I just say to the hospital, just take my cousin, like I worked hard, but he gets a job. They will say, no, you worked hard. It's your exam, it's your results, it's your numbers, it's your interview. You get the job, you get the fruit. So, good deeds for your own soul, bad deeds for your own soul. Self accountability is what God is trying to say since creation was ever made, since the first mankind was created. Now imagine, after sending all these prophets till Moses, till John the Baptist, till Zechariah, God now decides he will take a son. God will take a son, right? Well, that's ridiculous. God will become a base human animal and have the need to have a son or a child. The need to have a child is inherent within human nature, because we know eventually we will grow old. Right now, I'm a muscular man. I feel brave. I go to work. Anything comes my way, I will tackle it. But when you become old, when you become when you become weak, when you become disabled, you want somebody that is there, your own blood, your family, who will take care of you, right? So they will be your support system. God is Ghani, He is Hamid, He is absolutely self sufficient. He does not need anything from anybody. We human beings do. Right now, I'm going to work, I'm making money so I can feed myself. Alhamdulillah, I'm going to have dinner now. I have my water, my coffee. Because I'm working, I have money. When you grow old, you can't physically go to work because you're handicapped or your mind is not working or you're too old. So, who will provide for you? That's why you want children, so they can protect you, they can provide for you, so you can live a comfortable life till the day you die. You think God needs all these things? He does not need anything. So to assume that after sending the entire line of messengers and scriptures to warn people, you are accountable for your actions. God then says, okay, I will have a son, and this son will come and he will die. The Son of God will die. How can God die? If the Son of God is dead for those 3 or 4 days, who's taking care of the universe then? Who's taking care of the universe? Who's sending the rain? Who's sending the clouds? Who's getting the crops and the fruits and all of the plant life? Who's sustaining us? It's who's bringing the sun and the moon every day? Who's doing that when God is dead? That's not possible. God cannot die. God cannot have a son, and God cannot die. Okay? And we say Jesus Christ died on the cross to atone for the sins of mankind. We just said, you do a good deed, it's for you. You do a bad deed, it's against you. Jesus Christ conveniently comes, dies on the cross. So whatever has happened in the past is forgiven. Whatever comes in the future, all bad deeds, somebody's a criminal, he goes rape somebody, he goes kill somebody, he goes burns a house down. Oh, Jesus Christ has atoned for my sin. This makes no logical sense. If you are a person, a virtuous person of righteous character and conduct, you will agree this makes no absolute sense, that somebody is atoning for somebody even though he may be the Son of God. This makes absolutely no sense. If you do a good deed, if you are a righteous person, you will come in court, you will get your reward. Okay? If you are a bad person, you've done something bad, the justice system in this world also will be like, he is accused, he is the guilty, punish him, send him to jail. It cannot be that, for example, I come into court, I say, this is my son, I'm the prime minister, he's killed somebody, let him go. No, if you are an upright judge, you'd be like, we do not care who you are, this person is guilty of a crime, he must be convicted, he must receive the punishment. Similarly, there is no Son of God, there is no atonement for sin for somebody else. You do a good deed, your reward is with God. You do a bad deed, your punishment is with God. However, He is able to forgive all things. So turn to Him alone and nobody else. And that being said, we have crossed the 1 hour mark. Oh my God. So as I mentioned, next chapter, we will not start with this. We will just dive deep, inshallah. I hope so. Nothing. If something else comes in my mind that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about it, okay? But the plan for tomorrow or the next episode 5, will be that we start with Surah Baqarah, verse 17 onwards. So just to give a recap now, so we don't have to do this in the next episode. Surah Baqarah, we've got 16 verses. The first few verses talk about how this is a book, it's a guidance for certain people who believe in God, who establish prayer, who give out in charity, stuff like that. And then God introduces 3 characters: the believers, disbelievers, hypocrites. So where we pick up from is God starts talking about in metaphorical graphic similes about what the hypocrites are, in their mental status, in terms of what their thinking is, in terms of how they think, how they are. So God explains them beautifully in 2 amazing natural metaphors, talking about science, talking about human discovery, talking about the natural elements. So with that being said, I wish you guys a great day. Thank you for listening. And if I've made any mistakes, just write in the comments, okay, this is a mistake. And I will ask forgiveness of God. You forgive me also. I ask Allah to forgive my parents and have mercy on them as He nourished me when I was a child. Have mercy on my brothers, forgive them, remove any rancor from our hearts, unite us in love, and my family members. May God guide us, have mercy on us, and may God have mercy on all of you and guide us all to the straight path. And we end with sending salutations and blessings upon all the messengers of God, ending with Prophet Muhammad. And peace be upon you. Have a good day. Take care, guys.